how much information should we be sharing to our children and loved ones around us?
Right, thank you, Lola, and thank you to Mr. Moba and Bayo for all that they have shared so far. Before I start on how much information that we should be sharing with them, I'd like to talk briefly on what can help, because I see the very reluctance and I understand it. And I think that it is because we are looking at sexual education from the viewpoint of what we know. And so you don't want to go out just talking to them about sex and the different complications because you are viewing it from your own perspective. But when it comes to educating a child, children are innocent. I mean, it is what you tell them or what they see or what they hear that they begin to build on. So I first want to demystify it and say that, look, let it not be something to shy away from, and change your perspective on how you see sexual health education. Maybe not, that's why I said, let's not talk about it as sex, but let's talk about it as sexual reproductive health. So if, for instance, you had started from the beginning educating your child about their body parts and teaching them that, okay, you know what, this is the limit at which you go in allowing anybody come close to you, or exposing your body parts, and to respect other people's body parts and not touch them in certain places, you have already started. And when you start that way, especially if you have younger ones now, starting, you know, from 2, as they grow older, by 5, they are knowing better. Okay, yes, why do I have a vagina and then my brother has a penis? Why can't I grow a penis like I see from my brothers? And you go further to explain to them. You're also helping them to be self-aware. And then when they begin now to start talking about, because, you know, your own children, you may bring them up in a certain way that they are not exposed to sexual activity and everything, you know, surrounding sex. But they are going to school, they have friends, you know, they have people who may not, they're mixing with other children whose parents may not be as observant, you know, and as careful as you are. And we are beginning to see children exposed to pornography even from the age of 5, especially in our world now. I mean, it was there already during our own world, but we didn't have, and during our own time growing up. But, you know, the children didn't have access to the internet. They didn't have access to phones and tablets the way we do.
But we had
Yes,
that the sexy man,
yes.
which
But
really, if you think about it, that was quite a pornographic magazine that we had access to, and nobody really told us.
interestingly, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, really? Oh my goodness, yes.
So you
So
see,
our driver used to read it, and he used to pass it on to us. God, what was the magazine called? But it was Dowda the sexy guy, and he always had ended with having sex with somebody. With
It was called Dowda the Sexy Guy.
oh, it
I
was
think
called Dowda.
it was called Dowda the Sexy Guy. And it's amazing how Anne had referred to innocence. And we read it, but we read it with an innocent mind. So as we got older, we kind of knew what was going on, but we didn't look at it as pornography. But with a more intelligent mindset now, it was pornography. It was cartoon pornography, you know. And it's about the way your mind is colored. And I'll give just a very quick example. Before I went abroad, I would go to markets like Balogun with my mother, and I would see, especially the Igbo traders, walking around holding hands. And I never thought anything of it. It's just something that they do as a matter of course. And I now traveled and came back. And now when I go to the market and I see these Igbo traders holding hands, and I'm just, you know, I think deep down I know there's nothing there, because you can't have just so many gay Igbo men roaming around central Lagos. But you're right, your mindset, and if you have an innocent mindset, which a lot of children don't have now. As you rightly said, we came into the age of sexual health education or awareness much later. But if you hear the stories that professionals in the industry would give you when they come and give these talks, you'll be amazed at what 7-year-olds are getting up to. And by the time they are 10, 11, some of them are professionals. But
really sexually active, yes.
Yeah, so anyway.
Yes. Thank you, Bayo, for bringing that up. So continuing with what I was saying as to how to, this demystify this sexual health education. So talking about building up on what I have said again, you may also want to start from what they know. So another good way is to ask them, just when you know that, okay, you want to have this conversation with them, you can start with what they know. So you can ask them, so have you heard anything about sex? What do you know that sex is? You can put them on the spot and start with what they know. Another way to go about it is start from a scientific point of view. Tell them what a penis does, what it is used for, how do babies come about. So you don't need to make it bogus. I mean, just from what, depending on the age that they are, what it means. For instance, when I was talking to my children about sex, I did talk about, I told them that, it's what you do. It is what adults do. Adults who, and my husband was trying to specify that adults who are married are the ones. So depending on your moral beliefs, on your religious beliefs, on your religious settings, that may also inform how you put it across, to your children, especially if you don't want them to engage in premarital sex. I mean, that is subjective. But really to tell them, okay, it is what only, because I remember when I had that conversation, my 7-year-old, he asked me, what happens if, you want to do it? I mean, what is the consequence of doing it if, yes, before you're an adult? And I know that it was an innocent question because he's a very inquisitive child. And I was taken aback by that question. But I had to answer. I said, because you're not ready for the consequences. What happens is there's a lot of emotional responsibility. And again, your partner can get pregnant, whoever it is. If it's a woman, a girl can get pregnant. A boy would have to become responsible, be a father. And that means that you have to start working, you have to provide for the child, by the time I explained it to him, you could see, I mean, I think that, he got the message. Do you understand? But if I never had that conversation, I would not have had the opportunity to explain it to him. And that is the danger of leaving sexual health education for you to the school and to other children. Because if you, like Lola said at the beginning, when you are the one giving the education and you are making them know, you are controlling the narrative. You are helping them you are shaping their values from the beginning. You are introducing it to them, and they can always come back to you. That means that you have given them the avenue to always come back to you, to ask those questions, to discuss those issues around that, to discuss what their friends said that is contrary to what you have told them. Because whether you like it or not, if you're not discussing it with them, once a child is 7, they are hearing about this from their classmates, they are reading it in their, I mean, I make my children read a lot, books. I mean, in some of these books, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Diaries, all these things, they see guys, they talk about kissing, they talk about girlfriends. I mean, they ask me all of these questions. If I wasn't having that conversation with them, they probably would be having fantasies in their mind, or feeding their knowledge from what they hear from people and from things that they're watching on cartoons. I mean, how much of scrutiny can you do? There's a limit. But when you set the standard, then you are setting off your children from starting from a good foundation. So that's why, more than anything, please don't shy away from having these conversations. I have simplified it. You may start with what they know, start from a scientific point of view, or you may even start with, they may be having a conversation. They may say something that is not right, or they may say something that, oh, one of their friends said, or they may ask you a question. That may be your cue to have those conversations with them. Now, going to the question on how much information do you give? It depends on their age and what they are exposed to. Now, I've had to have conversations with my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old about pornography, because I'm seeing that a lot of, in fact, if you work with people who work with children in churches or in social services, you would be surprised, the things that children are exposed to now, and then now we've gone to the digital space. COVID has forced our children to be online. They do games. They are always going on YouTube to see different things. There's so many exposures that they may have. So talk to them about pornography. Let them know that it is not good. Let them know that it is psychologically damaging. Have this. Okay, now, for instance, we were talking about the Dowda book, as Bayo and Lola talked about the Dowda book. That was when we were, less than 10. Now they have more than the Dowda book. They have videos and all of that. I mean, I've had people talk about how their children, just how they saw pornographic stuff on their child's tablets in school. Some of the teachers will complain to you about some of the things that these children talk about. So again, going back, I always forget, going back to how much information. The information that you give is dependent on how old they are and how exposed that they are. But more or less, any child, I should say it here now, that any child that is above 7 should know what sex is and should know what pornography is. And you should teach them how to avoid these things and the vices that are there.
Thank you very much.